Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Heading to week 3, taking a look at a massive Big Ten matchup as Penn State goes on the road and plays an Illinois team that beginning of the year really high on. Definitely a shaky start to the season, but I think a really good matchup for the Fighting Illini. Excited to get into this. Now, before we do again, just want to say thank you to you guys. Over 8,000 subscribers. It's been such a blast doing these game breakdowns, talking picks with you guys in the comment section. So one, if you do enjoy the content, you want to support the boys, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, again, the best part about doing this, talking ball, talking picks in the comment section. Drop your pick in the comment section. We'll chop it up there. Dill, I'm going to kick this one off to you. Penn State on the road to Illinois, kind of a battle of two teams that want to be physical in the trenches. How are we feeling here?
I mean, this is obviously I know Illinois has gotten off to a really bad start and they play Toledo really tight and then go lose to Kansas. But this Penn State team, I mean, they don't play that run and shoot style of game. This kind of is more the matchup like how Michigan was for Illinois, where they match up a little better. I do think the problem is Drew Allar has taken this offense up a notch because he's given them that new element that they can really push the ball down the field. He plays a little bit more aggressive than what they've seen in the past, and he has the arm to make those throws. So it'll be interesting to see what Illinois can do if they can tighten this game up a little bit and just play tougher than what they've played, because they really haven't been particularly stout.
That's a really good point. I think this Illinois matchup is very similar to the matchup when they played Michigan on the road late last year, where Illinois struggled with all the speed that Kansas had on the field Friday night. And you saw that they got a bunch of different matchups that just were not their kind of matchup. Penn State is going to try to do what Illinois does, and I think Illinois has a chance to kind of keep it close here. Now, my only problem is I think Illinois and Penn State want to play a similar brand of football. The thing is, I think I'm just leaning Penn State in terms of the talent. I think they're just better at what Illinois wants to do than what Illinois is. Let's start on Penn State's offense versus Illinois defense, because that is the story for Penn State. And if they're going to do something special, and I want to go to Drew Allar first. You said, and we kind of said in the beginning of the season, it's a perfect situation for him, right? An elite offensive line, a really good run game. For a young, talented quarterback, you couldn't really ask for a better situation to come into. And they're going up against an Illinois team that I think is really good in the front seven. And I'm very interested to see if Penn State can kind of establish the line of scrimmage and run the football and kind of take a little bit of pressure off Drew, who, again, this is probably your biggest on-the-road matchup to date for Drew as a starting quarterback.
And that's the thing. You look, Illinois, I coming into this year, I would have thought, man, if they play teams that really want to establish the run, they'll be tough. But you look at even what they're doing, and I get they're playing a little bit different style of offenses, but even when these teams kind of go try to run that inside power, which not that that's what they tried to lean on, but when they did it, they were still running Illinois guys off the ball. It's like their defensive line is just not – it just doesn't look the same as it did last year. Randolph, Newton, they're not being as dominant. They're playing decent, but I mean, if they're going to have a chance in this game, those two need to be incredible. And I just haven't seen incredible play. And you've seen them getting moved off the football too much. And if you can't hold the line against Penn State, they're going to run all over it.
So my only pushback on that is that the Kansas, Toledo, they were going a lot of stretch trying to get to the outside. That's not how Newton and Randolph want to play. So it's getting them to move laterally, I think, was really effective in kind of neutralizing two guys that at the point of attack are some of the best players in college football. Penn State's going to go try to play a little bit more bully ball. That's why I'm so excited for this matchup. It's why we're doing it Sunday morning. Can't wait to break it down, because you're going to see this is going to be a classic Big Ten showdown. Now, Penn State establishing the run, I think, is a big storyline. That being said, I think I might have undersold the impact of losing Ryan Walters, of losing Witherspoon, Martin, and Sidney Brown, because Illinois on the back end, they're inexperienced, but I think also they're going through some growing pains. And Penn State, kind of pushing the ball down the field a little bit better than expected. I wonder if Penn State's going to try to kind of attack this secondary that, again, hasn't been as sticky as we've seen in the past under Ryan Walters' coach defense.
And that's the thing. You look at what Allar's doing. I mean, he is taking advantage of times when he's got a shot to go make a big play. And again, that was something Penn State really didn't do a whole lot of in the past under a handful of quarterbacks, frankly, for the longest time. But now you do have Allar, he's got the big arm. He can make the throws on the run when the play breaks down a little bit. If you're not sticky on those receivers, you saw that against West Virginia. He's pushing the ball down. They're making big plays. I mean, I think they've unlocked a new element with what Allar's doing. I think the wideouts are playing a little better than we think, especially led by Keandre Lambert-Smith. This Penn State offense looks really good, and I don't even know. I guess Allar maybe hasn't been tested totally yet. I haven't seen a team heat him up in the way maybe you want to and make him make mistakes. But right now, it's hard to not kind of think this guy's the man.
Yeah, the thing is, I think it's going to be so hard you have to bring guys to heat Drew up because I think that offensive line is so solid. And like you said, our big question mark was, like, we know they're going to have a good offensive line. You know they have two of the best running. I don't even think we've mentioned Katron Allen and Nick Singleton by name. Absolute dogs, I might say. That being said, the wide receivers, I think, have been the story. Like Lambert-Smith kind of emerging as that go-to wide receiver one in that offense. Wallace, Dante Cephas getting sprinkled in. This is a very dangerous Penn State offense that really is hard to stop. Now, Dill, I want to flip it a little bit and talk about this Illinois offense going up against a Penn State defense that, as much as we just spent the last 6 minutes talking about Penn State and how good they have been on offense, Dill, the strength of this team is Manny Diaz and having this Penn State defense absolutely fly around.
And frankly, if you asked me preseason, like, would Illinois be able to like take advantage of some things Penn State does, I would have probably said yes. Like, Penn State is a great overall defense, but they're kind of built a little bit to beat like Ohio State. I don't know that they want to play that like really heavy. I mean, kind of how Michigan runs the ball, but you look at what Illinois is doing up front on the offensive side of the ball. They're not driving teams around. They're not establishing the run the way you thought. And frankly, if you can't establish like a physical inside power run against Penn State, they're way too athletic. They're skilled. Like, their guys on the edge and in the secondary are so good. I just don't see how you can move the ball unless they can change something on this offense.
Yeah, I have two things on that. One, I think so many, like, the national media spends so much time saying Penn State doesn't have big bodies on the inside. That's going to be a problem in the Big Ten.
Well, you saw Donaldson get going a little bit, frankly, in that first half of that game. And that's like essentially, I think, the way, if you're going to try to attack this Penn State defense at all, it feels like you have to do it that way.
Yeah, I just think that the speed in the linebacker play from guys like Jacobs and Abdul Carter, like, it, even if you're a little undersized, like, they're fast, they're athletic, and they don't necessarily win with like the size and power on the inside, but they do win with the speed and athleticism. Now, going to Illinois' offense, like, I think another thing I undersold, and if you guys were listening to me and my takes on Illinois, I was really high on this team because you return 3 guys on that offensive line who I think are going to be playing in the NFL. I think they're solid. Still, what I'm a little bit more concerned is I don't think these running backs are running the rock nearly as good as what Chase Brown was doing last year. I mean, Reggie Love, Josh McCray, I think we kind of underappreciated Chase Brown and how complete of a running back he was with the elusiveness, with the power, with his vision. I mean, Josh McCray, and again, a guy that I like, just seems a little bit lost. And Illinois not being able to establish the run in any meaningful way against Toledo and Kansas makes me really nervous about going into this Penn State game, where if they have to lean on Luke Altmaier, who I think is an upgrade, I think Luke Altmaier is good. It's going to be a long day if you can't get anything going on the ground.
I mean, Penn State, if they can't run the ball, these edge rushers are going to be all over these tackles, especially on the right side, because the right side of the Illinois offensive line feels like it's giving up a ton of pressure. And if they can't get the run going, and I don't know, they really haven't against teams that I don't necessarily think Penn State's maybe the most designed to stop the big power physical run, but they're certainly far better prone to do it than Kansas and Toledo. So it's like, if you couldn't run the ball on those two, you're not moving an inch on Penn State. And that's the big concern. Because again, if they can get after Luke Altmaier, who's taken a fair amount of sacks already this year and turning the ball over a little bit with 3 picks, that's going to be a long day. Because again, you even look, if you're going to be putting the ball in harm's way, this secondary obviously is
flies around
in the country.
Yeah, Luke Altmaier, I want to talk about him. He was magical against Toledo, especially in the second half.
I don't even want to criticize him too much. He's doing what he can, but this offense around him is just not giving him a ton.
Because and like that goes back to like, what's your identity, Illinois, on the offense side of the ball? And last year it was like, we're gonna lean on teams, we're gonna grind them down, and you just don't see them doing that so far this year. And I know there's time for it to kind of come together again. You have a new quarterback, you have a new running back. It's just, you pick Illinois to win games because they're going to be more physical in the trenches. You look at this matchup, I don't know if they're more physical in the trenches than this Penn State team, which they'll, I guess we'll get to the pick here. Penn State, you're seeing lines pop around 12.5, maybe up to two touchdowns on the road. Where are you leaning? Are you taking Illinois with the points? Or are you taking Penn State to win by 2 touchdowns on the road here?
I don't love picking Penn State to take 2 touchdowns. I know we've been like a little critical of Illinois, but there still does feel like that's in them again. Do I think Newton and Randolph in that defensive line have played their best ball yet?
Newton, I thought, played really good against Kansas. Do you disagree?
He was good in the pass rush for sure, but the problem is like they're giving up some pushed around a little bit up front, and I don't know if that's kind of how they're telling him to play and be a little more lateral and whatnot. But I did think there were some moments where, man, I'm like, I'm really surprised Toledo's driving this team off the ball. So it's like, again, if you see that against Toledo, you go to Penn State, it's just a different animal. But to sum it up, I think this Illinois team, I still think the bones are there. I think they got to get it out of them somehow. I think this Penn State offense, again, it's not that run and shoot style. I think they might make it a little bit of a tougher, slower going game. I just think 2 touchdowns a lot. If Illinois can play a little bit more like how they played last year in the Big Ten.
I'm with you. Like, if this line gets inside of 10, I probably I like Penn State to win the game. I'm kind of with you. And another question is, like, this is Drew's first on the road start where, like, it probably is going to be jumping. I think there's a lot of optimism around this Illinois team. Obviously, you prefer them to be 2-0 going into this game. That being said, I'm not going to take Illinois. Probably not going to take Penn State. It's more of like I would like to see what Drew Allar has in terms of going on the road and making it happen. But this Penn State team so far looks really, really good. But like you said, Illinois has the bones to make this a close game. It's going to be a good one. That's why we chose to do it on Sunday. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, let us know your picks in the comment section, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.